Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you so much for being here. Excited to spend some time to walk you through the 2026 proposed budget that we have submitted today. Huge thanks to Nicole Duheny, our CFO, who's here with me, and our entire team from the Division of Finance who's been working on this for months. Really grateful for all of your help there here in the crowd. Let me start with a little bit of an overview of some of the highlights of what you will see today. As you know, we have worked to now close a $200 million budget gap across the city, and doing that all while protecting core city services, maintaining our focus on citywide priorities, and doing this with no new taxes or increased fees. That was a critical priority for us. As we know, Denver residents are struggling in the same way the city is economically, and so we wanted to not pass that on to residents either. You'll see this year's budget has a reduced general fund of almost 6% to meet our projected 2026 revenue. And you'll also see here that we will take some steps to try to strengthen our reserves so that we start to rebuild fund balance. As you know, it had been decreasing over the last number of years, and so we use some one-time dollars to allocate that as well. Go to the next slide. This is obviously a trend you're seeing all around the country. Pew Research Center just came out to show that 20 of the 25 largest cities all facing budget cuts of a significant scale. You probably saw our friends in Colorado Springs just announced this weekend they're looking at 7% budget cuts, including both layoffs and furloughs for 2026. And so this is affecting cities of all sizes, all sorts, blue cities, blue states, red states. We know all folks are facing the same type of challenge here. Next slide. Here's a little bit of a closer look at the math that we have in Denver. As you will see, our projected growth for 2026 would have been $1.86 billion. That would have been the natural growth of government had we not intervened to make changes. Our anticipated 2026 revenue is $1.66 billion. That's where you see the $200 million problem that we've been trying to solve, and I'll show you where that comes from. So today we announced the full combination of where these cuts come from. You remember we announced first the personnel savings. Today we'll announce about $77 million also in savings in services, supplies, contracts I'll walk you through, and a couple of $1 million in revenue additions. Let me say one word about the personnel savings. I know I can see in your eyes, many of you that are very close watchers of the math, you say, wait a sec, that was $104 million when you made the initial announcement 2 weeks ago. That is correct. The 104 to the 118 shift is a combination of vacancy or staff reductions made by independent agencies or made by other elected officials and or some on-call staffing adjustments to be made in places like Parks and Rec, where those would not be considered in the full FTE allocations we announced previously, but are savings related to personnel. So that's that difference in the 118. Let me take a minute and walk you through some of the highlights of the 77 and the 5.7. In this $77 million in changes in contract services supplies, a couple of the larger items you'll see. One is great thanks to our SUMA and our technology services team that we're able to find $10 million in savings from reducing or canceling tech contracts. We reduced a number of the apps that the city uses. That includes things like Adobe, where we had an existing contract that we eliminated to find an open source version of that tool that's available for free, and to reduce upgrades or subscriptions or tech product availability without compromising functionality. So thanks to SUMA for their leadership on that work. Another one is we saved $8 million both for the city and for residents by moving folks off of credit card payment fees onto other financing systems that don't require additional payment costs. And so that saves the city $8 million. We're also saved Denver residents from money from not paying a credit card processing fee when they pay any city bills. We did mention on Friday, but there's about $11 million in savings from closing 2 of the rented hotels we were using in our all-in effort. As you know, the Radisson Hotel we closed this year. This budget will call to close the Comfort Inn next year. For us, this is good progress in showing that the system we have is working, which is when we first opened these hotels, the purpose was to meet the overflow needs of getting folks off the street into transitional housing. As we've gotten better and more focused on case management, on our housing command center that's accelerating housing exits, on our workforce training, that means we can get people moved out of transitional housing into permanent housing faster. That means we need fewer hotel sites to do that. And importantly, this will conclude closing all the hotels from which we are paying rent or leasing. Like any family, you'd rather own than rent, and so this takes those off our books. It also shows the first transition of one of our micro communities, our tiny home villages, where we will close that operation and will instead put permanent workforce housing on that site. Our goal was always we would move towards permanent housing as the end goal for these tiny home villages. That will be the first one on Monroe where you'll see us make that transition. So those are all signs of success for us. You'll see some other additional reductions in everything from tech liability insurance to the common sense practice of sending a postcard instead of a letter for property tax statements. And you will see us consolidate points of entry into our public buildings to save security. We don't reduce the security presence, we just reduce the number of entrances, but it actually gives us fewer places to protect and requires fewer security dollars to do it. So those are some of the places you'll see in contracts and supplies. Next slide. A little bit about places where we'll see some changes in revenue. They're modest, but they do make a difference. One is a couple in Parks and Rec. We had a great Parks and Rec employee who identified that they get lots of requests from people who can't find greenhouse space in the city. We have available greenhouse space, so for the first time, after being asked many times by residents, we will rent greenhouse space to residents who need it. That'll bring in some revenue. There's an annual discount day. It's sort of our Black Friday for Parks and Rec membership, where we try to incentivize everyone to buy their Parks and Rec membership for the year. That was a 40% discount each year. It'll still be a 30% discount, but that is a small amount of revenue increase without losing the chance to get people to buy memberships. We've added a fire inspection service right now. Often we get called to do inspections on conveyances. That could be elevators, escalators. Often we come to inspect an elevator. You first have to pay an external private provider to fix it. They then have to call us to come inspect it, identify the 5 things they got wrong, tell them how to fix it again, at which you pay a private inspector to do that again a second time. Now our fire team will be able to come and in a one-stop shop provide the service, provide the inspection, and provide any improvements that you need, which both saves the customer time and will be a new service that the city already is providing but not getting paid for. We also have heard a lot citywide, Chief Thomas and I have talked about this a lot, from folks who want to see more speeding enforcement. They're worried about increased rates of speed through the neighborhoods and others, and so we will increase some of the use of our photo radar enforcement as a way to increase safety in terms of speed all around the city. Will also have a modest impact on revenue. So that is the totality of the $200 million that you've seen. A little bit of an overview here of what you see from general fund expenditures. You'll notice here our 2025 budget, what you'll notice is the first shorter red line on the right, was the first time in over a decade that the city had intentionally reduced the growth of government and the size of government. So we did that last year in 2025. You'll see this year, it'll be about a 6% decrease in the operating budget, the largest economic adjustment since 2011, not counting the COVID adjustment where there was ARPA dollars that helped intervene halfway through to preserve some of those cuts. Go to the next slide. This means along the way that we had to make significant efforts to curb personnel growth, as that's still about 70% of our budget. So you'll see this is the second year in a row we've reduced the total headcount of the city. This year we will reduce it by almost 1,000 FTE, and you'll see how that is the kind of structural right sizing that is permanent built-in growth that is harder for us to keep up with. And so those decisions were important for us to put the city back on sound financial footing. Next slide. What we really want to focus on here is what we protected in core services. We've been through hundreds of hours of work with our departments on where to make cuts, and what they've been really focused on is what are the core services we are not willing to give up. And it's really important for us, for residents, to know what those services are that have been protected in this budget. We've protected core customer service. That means we've maintained our hours at our rec centers and parks. That means we haven't closed pools. We haven't had to close libraries or rec centers in the 2008 and 2010 recession. That had to happen. We're proud to not do that. Our public-facing customer service counters, permits, licensing, those are also not seeing reductions in available hours to the public. No changes in trash collection. You're not going to have to pay more for trash. You're not going to get it picked up less frequently. No cuts to core street sweeping and snow plowing services. Those are all really critical. No reductions to our patrols or our police officers on the street. We hear a lot of requests from residents to make sure that is not taken away. There will be no changes there. We've obviously worked very hard to increase the speed of our permitting system to this 180-day development permit review time. No changes to that commitment. We didn't make cuts to employee health or retirement benefits. You see a lot of cities or states that are doing this by passing on more of the share of those benefits to employees. We did not do that. We're not going to change our core cold weather sheltering services, which were really instrumental last year in protecting people from exposure to real weather and risks of freezing to death. And importantly, as I mentioned, we are not increasing taxes or fees. There were ways we could have chosen to activate mills or raise property taxes on residents or add new fees. We intentionally did not do that as a way to protect residents citywide. Go back one more slide. Let me say one thing about this before we move on. This is really important for us to frame, because the way we went around this budget is we started by focusing on the things that were the lowest impact to cut. We started on services, on contracts, on programs. We made all those reductions first. And I kept going back to departments over and over and say, what more can you cut here? What more can you cut here? What more can you cut here? Until they finally said, we're at the bone now, Mike. Any additional cuts here will impact core services like these. Then we went on to personnel. And we said, cut all the vacancies you can. And went back and back and back and cut all the vacancies you can until those executive directors said to me, if you cut any more of these vacancies, I can't provide core public services. And then from there, and only there, did we go to layoffs. And there too, tried to protect those core public services. I say that because in each of these locations, we have cut to the bone without affecting these core services. If there are amendments to the budget that add new cuts to any of these departments, those would directly either cut these core services or require more layoffs. Because there is nothing left to cut in these departments from what has currently been done without affecting these core services or affecting layoffs, which is why we think it's really critical for all the public to know about that in the process ahead, and also for us to work with City Council on that partnership going forward. Go to the next slide. I want to answer the two questions we get often. Okay, what about top citywide priorities like public safety and housing and homelessness? What did you do there? What will the budget book show? And I want to answer that question. Let's talk about housing first and host. In the budget book, you will see that the general fund allocation for host remains flat. No increases in the general fund, no cuts in the general fund. However, the reality is that meant that the host team had to take about $33 million in reductions in the host budget to be able to keep that budget flat because of the growth. There are three major areas of that. One is, as I mentioned, the closure of the Comfort Inn and the Monroe Microcommunity. That saves about $11 million. The other is the reprioritization of our TRUA fund, which is our rental assistance fund. We've been working with our team at Host, who's done a great job of prioritizing our focus on this not being solely an eviction prevention fund, but a homelessness prevention fund, which is there are folks who are facing eviction who do have other safety nets they can rely on. They have family to stay with, they have friends to stay with, they have a sister they can stay with, they have an eye on another apartment. Those folks are not immediate risk of homelessness, but they are facing eviction. By prioritizing the fund on folks at risk of homelessness, we're able to both spend less on rental assistance, but spend it more effectively. And we will see we've made that adjustment this year, so you'll see a consistent expenditure in 26 to what we've made in 25, given that adjustment. The one of these that we're not happy about and we're not doing willfully is the third category, which is the $11 million of reduced funding. That is the reductions of federal support around housing vouchers, the reduction of state support around housing vouchers, and the reduction of programming that we provide that goes with those vouchers. So when the vouchers no longer exist, the services that accompany them no longer exist. But that is about the $33 million in large numbers that our host team has absorbed. Also want to talk a little bit about our safety agencies. You will see that while in the general fund, you will see the safety agencies on net be about even. They also absorbed about $27 million of growth within those departments. And a big part of that, if folks ask, well, what about the collective bargaining contracts? Each of the safety heads and I knew we had collective bargaining this year. We started 5 months ago planning for what the increases we could afford there, and each of those departments absorbed all of those collective bargaining cuts within their department budget. Let me say that again. In the places where we had collective bargaining contracts for safety, each of those safety agencies absorbed those increases within their budget. There are not other city agencies bearing the costs of those decisions. That was an intentional decision, which I supported and the chief. Both chiefs supported, to say it is a top priority for us to protect public safety in the city. To do that, you have to recruit and retain staff. And we think that is an important priority, even if it meant making other adjustments like civilian and uniform vacancy savings. Like we did eliminate one class of fire next year because we are at fully authorized strength for fire. And it did remain getting offsets in those collective bargaining contracts where there were things the union gave back in offsets that helped balance those. So just want to name those two things as well. All right, next one. Also important, when we started this, we said it's not just about managing the budget, it's about how we try to make city government work more efficiently. So there are places where we thought we had a chance to actually improve city services in the midst of hard decisions. I want to name some of those. We did consolidate some city departments. So we consolidated our Office of Special Events into the Department of Arts and Venues. So that will now be a division within Arts and Venues, no longer a standalone department. Perla led some really great work at Human Rights and Community Partnership, where we consolidated from 9 different divisions down to 4. Adib and the team at Dito did great work in really focusing from 5 to 3 divisions there, all of which are maintaining a core focus on what those departments do and must do and do well, but doing it in a more streamlined manner. You'll see other things like Ben's work at our OSCI team around consolidating all of our youth violence work citywide into our Office of Neighborhood Safety. Thanks to Karen and the team at Public Health around consolidating all of our citywide food programs into our public health team. So those are aligned and streamlined. And then Joel and the team at Parks and Rec consolidated some of our permitting offices there also to make them run slightly more smoothly. Other places where you'll see some government efficiencies that are make it easier as a consumer. Adib's team at Economic Development also are going to make it faster and easier for small women and minority-owned businesses to apply to get certified for city contracts. Suma's team at Technology Services has developed Sunny, our chatbot this year, which is already an award-winning service, which now provides 24-hour-a-day response to any resident question in, Suma, 45 languages or 48 languages. So those are available 24 hours a day, which is a great innovation. That also means we reduced some of the call time hours from 7 p.m. close to 5 p.m. close because so much of our volume is moving onto Sunny. Things that are not sexy but really matter, like we've launched a permitting wizard in our planning and development office, which helps dramatically expedite the rate at which we do intake for permits. We have a system for creating the daily route that an inspector goes on. You'd think in the old days, you just say, oh, I got 20 inspections to do, get in the car with your list and start driving to them. Well, our team now developed a system where we can map every site, know what the fastest route is, get you there in order, saves our inspectors 38% of their time back. Same work they're doing it 38% faster. So you'll see those are the kind of things that you'll see that are improvements, we hope, in city services across the city. One more. I get this question a fair amount, so I will say this one 3 times. People ask, okay, well, is the budget crisis in part a function of increased spending on migrants and homelessness? Here is the one data point you'd answer that question. In 2023, this is before I arrived, the last budget of the previous administration, that was the 2023 budget, we spent $73.9 million, $74 million on migrants and homelessness together. In 2026, we will spend $66 million on migrants and homelessness together. We will spend $8 million less on migrants and homelessness in 2026 than we spent in 2023. Let me say that again. We will next year in this budget spend $8 million less on migrants and homelessness combined than we spent the year before I became mayor in 2023. So that's, and by the way, at the same time, we have delivered historic results on this work. Our homelessness efforts, as you know, have now delivered the largest reduction in street homelessness of any city in American history. Largest city ever to end street homelessness for veterans. These investments are working, and what we believe to be true is now true, which is when the investments work, you actually get better results on the same or fewer dollars. So I just want to make sure that was clear for any folks that had questions. I think, last slide. In fact, those investments have been successful enough that our migrant crisis fund will actually return money to the general fund this year. And that is why, thanks to that, we will, for the first time since 2022, shore up our fund balance. As you know, we want to keep fund balance above 15%. It was getting to 10% in the 2025 actuals before we took steps to put $4 million from the Migrant Crisis Response Fund back into general fund. That will shore that back up to 11%. We still have to build a path to get back to 15%, but this shows the first year of us moving in the right direction to restore fund balance, not to deplete it. And then we'll have a full general fund contingency of $34 million. Okay, I will close with this, and happy to open with questions. The challenge that we know most American cities are facing is the one we have just spent the last 4 months working through. And as a part of that, you have to make the hard decisions to live within your means. You have to be able to balance your budget, even when it's difficult. Today, we are submitting a balanced budget that solves a $200 million hole, and that has not been easy in any way to fill. But what that means by submitting this budget today is now actually we have the chance for the city to say, this is our chance for Denver to pull together and to grow our way out. Because we've built the most conservative budget the last 15 years. It's building on 0% growth for next year. Our goal as a city is now to work to deliver better than 0% growth. And that means my ask of residents to say is, now is your chance to help Denver pull together and grow our way out. That means investing in Denver. That means going out to dinner in Denver. It means doing your shopping in Denver. It means deciding to find moments of joy, like going to a concert at Red Rocks or going to a Avs or a Nuggets game or a Broncos game or going to a show at the Denver Performing Arts Complex. Those key investments are going to make a difference. And we know that's also why we think it is the right time to make investments that help grow the city's revenue base. I've said before, the convention center built in a recession, Coors Field built in a recession, Union Station built in recessions. Those are major economic drivers for the city. That's why we also believe, yes, you do want to drive the places that will drive growth. That's why a new Broncos stadium matters. That's why a new women's soccer stadium matters. That's why a Denver bond measure matters. That's why the Downtown Denver Authority matters. All investments that have zero impact on the general fund. I want to say again, all investments that have zero impact in the general fund, but will drive the economic activation that help grow the city's budget back and help grow the city's economy back. That, I think, is our call to action now as we've made the hard decisions. Now let's pull together and invest in the city we love to help pull our small businesses out and to help pull our general fund out. With that, I will stop, and we're happy to take questions.
I'll also just add, if there's a lot of you, not a lot of time, so please just ask one question so we can get to as many of you as possible.
Good to see you. I'm hoping you can clarify some of the personnel savings numbers here. This 957, is that in addition to what you did back in August, or is this encapsulated in it? These are 957 additional positions.
No, that's inclusive. That's all the stuff we announced, in August. That's just putting that on the chart.
Okay. And will there be any more layoffs with this number?
So what we communicated to employees today is that we have budgeted for 0% growth in 2026. If our returns are 0% or better, we will have no need for furloughs or layoffs in 2026. That is our plan. It would only be if the economy entered full-blown recession, if we have multiple quarters of negative growth, which you've not seen in maybe 15 years, I guess since COVID. That would be the only thing that would change that, but we have budgeted for the ability not to have to do furloughs and layoffs if we don't enter recession. Thank you. Yes.
Hi. As you plan to eliminate all of the leased hotel shelters, how many people are currently living there, and what is the plan for them once those are closed?
Thank you. Our plan is to transition all those folks out of those shelters into permanent housing. None of those folks will return to the street. They'll all go into permanent housing. We did that this year when we closed the Radisson, and we successfully transitioned all those folks into permanent housing. So our focus will be to help them exit in the first quarter of 2026. That's about 130 people, I believe. I'm not sure if Jamie's here. It's about 130 people that are in the Comfort Inn, and then another 30 or 40 that are in our micro community at Monroe.
I was hoping you could build on just what you talked about last time with hoping to solve kind of the root issue here, which is the drop in sales revenue. Last time you talked about this Keynesian philosophy to stimulating the economy of spending. Have you built on that? Do you have some sense of the kind of projects you would like to see the city fund, and in particular, is there anything downtown that you would like to see stimulated to drive that economy there?
Great question. I love that you pulled out the Keynes quote too. Again, I feel validated about that. So a couple of places where we really focus on this. One is this is the heart of our Downtown Denver Authority spending, right? So if you look at things like we're working at really aggressively taking this 7 million square feet of empty office space in downtown and converting those into apartments. That means people can live downtown, they can afford to live there, and they're walking out the door each day and buying coffee or buying lunch or going to the movies. So that drives revenue for downtown. You'll see this also in the bond campaign, which is that is investment into core infrastructure, whether that is places like public parks that are really attractive for folks that want to live and play around them, whether that is streetscapes like the Santa Fe streetscape, where you'll see for all of the First Friday art activations, that really helps make that the art center of the city where you can walk down Santa Fe and stop for a meal or stop to look in an art gallery. So we think the bond packages will help drive that kind of growth. And we think the other high-profile investments, like the women's soccer stadium, like the Broncos move to Burnham, like our continued work around Stock Show, and like Ball Arena and River Mile, those are all places that will bring more retail activation, more commercial activation, and more revenue. So that is a big downtown plan, it's a bond plan, and it's a special events plan, all of which we want to push at the same time.
Alcalde, buen día. Para nuestra comunidad hispana, ¿nos podría compartir un poquito de lo que se está anunciando el día de hoy y cómo impactarán esos cambios a la comunidad migrante?
Gracias. Hoy anunciamos que hemos terminado en nuestro budget por este año, que ya el $200 millones que ya tenemos que arreglar. Hoy anunciamos, y lo más importante es que vamos a proteger los servicios que son los más importantes. Entonces no vamos a cambiar la policía que está en las calles, no vamos a cerrar los centros de recreación ni los parques. Todavía puedes caminar aquí a la ciudad para recibir servicios. Entonces vamos a proteger todos esos servicios y juntos podemos construir una ciudad que ya está más fuerte que antes. A usted. Yes.
Did the city clerk and recorder make a request for a multi-million-dollar increase in their budget of the mayor's office? And if that's accurate, what did you tell them about that?
They did make a request for a multi-million-dollar expansion in their budget in the middle of cuts. We tried to work with them around making reductions in the budget. They weren't willing to work together on those, and so we just had to allocate them the amount of dollars that they could have used with a 5% reduction, which was our ask. So other departments, independents and electeds, worked collaboratively with us to try to reach a solution. They did not, and insisted on demanding increases, which we couldn't meet in this budget. And so in this budget, you'll see a 5% reduction to them across the board that they can determine how they want to absorb.
One more question.
Can I ask a minor clarifying question and then my bigger question?
I think Jordan, if I let me do that.
No change to trash services, does that include composting and recycling?
Yes. No change. Yes, no changes to those services.
So the larger question, I know you have this data point slide about homelessness and migrants. I don't know that it takes into account ARPA money or not, but the bottom line is the public knows you spent $40,000 for each person to live in a hotel. And now for covering a year and a half, you're talking about cuts. What's your message to the residents? They're like, minus this $40,000 that we're spending to keep people in a hotel, we may not be talking about cuts or layoffs or cutbacks.
Yeah, the first one that's most important is that is factually not true, which is we do have spending on homelessness that you have seen, but what you'll see is that is not increasing from 23 to 2026. So that $9 million reduction across those years shows that when we're balancing the 2026 budget, that is not the problem we're solving for. What is happening importantly is we are driving down the cost of what it requires to serve a homeless person by decreasing the length of stay that they are in one of our facilities. So let me give you an example. This, Marshall, here's how the math works. If you have a person that came to an all-in site in 2024, and they stayed for a year in that site before they moved out, they cost us $40,000 a year. That is true. If they were there for a 12-month length of stay, I will say $40,000 to $60,000 is about the exact cost you will find in any major city in America for what they spend. What we're doing is we thought originally, I will confess, 3 years ago, I thought we were gonna have to come back and build 7 or 8 more tiny home villages, or require 2 or 3 more hotels, because we would need to build more capacity for it. Instead, we need less capacity, because what we're doing is instead of having that person be at a 12-month length of stay, we're pushing them now to a 6-month length of stay, down to what will eventually be a 3-month length of stay. And the math is, if you have 1,000 units, if everyone stays for a year, you serve 1,000 people in a year, and they each cost $40,000. If you serve people every 6 months, you can now move 2,000 people through those same units, and every person only costs $20,000, right? If you can get that down to 3 months length of stay, you can serve 4,000 people in 1 year, and the cost per person drops to $10,000. So that is our real focus now, is focusing on better case management, faster housing placement, faster workforce training. Our new housing command center is exiting people now in 28 days from the start of services to them getting an apartment with a key. If we can accelerate that timing, that both gets more people off the street. It also cuts the amount we spend per person from about 40,000 to 20,000 or 10,000. So that is exactly what we're focused on, reducing the cost per person. But that is not the source of that gap. The one place I will say the gap does exist here is almost what would have filled our reserves to 15%, is the $24 million of FEMA funds that were allocated by Congress, promised to the city for the explicit use of supporting the migrant crisis, that then Trump came in and removed those dollars for us using them for the exact reason Congress told us to use them, which was for the migrant crisis. That $24 million of a failed promissory note from the federal government would have made a difference in filling our one-time reserves, but those are not ongoing carrying costs.
One more question, if I may. I'm not sure if I heard you right or if I misunderstood. Did you say city council needs to pass this budget as is and not make any changes to avoid any more potential layoffs or furloughs? That if they made any changes, this could open the door to more layoffs and furloughs? Did you say that?
I think we're open to working with City Council. One of the things we're very proud about is City Council sent us a letter before this process naming their priorities. They named 29 priorities that were in that list. I believe of those, we had 25 of them. So 25 of their priorities are all represented in this list. We think this is very much their priority list as well as ours. But what I did say is, yes, if there were going to be amendments that were run that reduce allocations from certain departments to fund other departments, those departments are all cut to the bone. And so if you were to reduce department spending, those departments would face either cuts in core services or layoffs. That would be the risk. I appreciate you all so much for being here. Thank you for the depth with which you've covered this. And I'm happy to take follow-up afterwards if there are more people have. But thank you so much for being here.